Jessica. We're just going to bring you the latest live picture we've got from Gaza because to the left of the picture, we've seen more rocket fire in the last 10, 15 minutes from a building very near to the beach, one of these big high-rise buildings, which does seem significant, bearing in mind that Israeli airstrikes have been trying to target these various rockets being fired, either homemade or brought in from the various tunnel systems underneath. We've counted on our feed at least 6 to 7 rockets being fired. No indication yet, of course, as to what the Israeli response may be to that, although there have been Israeli airstrikes in the south of Gaza, in the Rafah area.
This is all happening as this constant diplomacy continues. Within the last few hours, the news that President Joe Biden, he is heading to the region for talks to hear about plans for a ground attack in Gaza. And also it is hoped to tell Israel that they have to be so careful with their plans, because the UN Human Rights Office is warning that Israel's evacuation order could be an illegal, forcible transfer of civilians. Those civilians heading south, tens of thousands of them, down to the Khan Yunis area, where people are sleeping in the streets. There's hardly any running water, and that crossing, that vital access into Egypt, that Rafah crossing is still shut. People cannot get out and humanitarian aid cannot come in.
Well, let's get the views now of former director of Labour Friends of Israel, David Mencer, who can join us live from Tel Aviv. And David, we were just updating people with that rocket fire being seen from Gaza. It may surprise people that it appears Hamas has still got the capability of launching those rockets.
Those rockets which you're talking about are aimed at me. They're aimed at my family. They're aimed at my people. They're aimed at this country. They're targeted at civilian areas designed specifically to kill as many people as they possibly can. It's only thanks to Israel's miraculous Iron Dome missile defense system that those rockets are being knocked out of the sky. Myself and my family have been in and out of our bomb shelter many times yesterday evening. It is causing tremendous trauma to the young people. But of course, let's not forget that this entire episode, this latest chapter, and I would say this last chapter of Israel's battle against the genocidal death cult of Hamas, of the ISIS-like group of Hamas, started when 1,400 of my people, unarmed, innocent people going about their daily lives, just waking up on the Shabbat morning, on the Sabbath morning, on a Jewish holiday, were mercilessly massacred in scenes which are actually worse than the Nazis did. The Nazis, of course, tried hard to hide their crimes. Hamas, on the other hand, live streamed their crimes on Facebook, on TikTok, on Telegram. This is the barbarity of the enemy we are facing. We are facing it here in Israel, but the people of Britain should know as well that this enemy will not stay here in between Gaza and Israel. It will come to you soon if this barbarity is not stopped.
Yeah, should we also reflect, of course, that there have been Israeli airstrikes on Rafah in the southern Gaza Strip with pictures of Palestinians searching for their families who've been injured there. And there had been a hope, perhaps, with President Biden visiting tomorrow, that diplomacy might start to win the day rather than these airstrikes from both sides.
The address for criticism about civilians being harmed in Gaza should go directly to Hamas, not to Israel, directly to Hamas. Poverty in the Gaza Strip should go directly attributable to Hamas. Gaza should look like Monaco with the amount of aid which has been pouring into that strip. The poor people living in Gaza are poor because of Hamas. They have problems with their water supply because water pipes, which were donated by the international community, were dug up to be used as missiles to fire at my people. Now, the Jewish people, we recognize evil when we see it. We recognize barbarity when we see it. We've seen it before aimed at us, and this is exactly what's happening right now. This barbarity needs to be stood up to, And believe you me, Israel has been shocked by this attack, and it most definitely has been extremely unsettled. These are scenes which we've never thought we'd ever see again. But believe you me, this will be the last chapter of Hamas.
What do you say to, I think it's the UN Human Rights Office, David, that is claiming this Israeli evacuation order could be illegal? People forcibly being moved, the forcible transfer of tens of thousands of civilians could be an international war crime. What do you think of that claim?
I would say to the United Nations, their primary role right now, as well as looking after the civilians in Gaza, have been told to move away, to get out of harm's way. Their primary responsibility right now should be rescuing the hostages, Israel's innocents that have been taken. This morning, I attended a press conference of one of the poor young ladies that was a 21-year-old girl that was kidnapped and is being held against her will. To see the look of pain on her mother's face, on her brother, on her two brothers, on her family's face, the psychological warfare which is being imposed on the people of Israel, that should be the primary role of the United Nations right now. The United Nations, unfortunately, in this part of the world, is not an innocent bystander. We know that
there are
Hamas
obviously agencies that would take issue with what you're saying on that. But can I just get your thoughts, David, on what you just said on this announcement from Turkey that it's actually in talks with Hamas on the release of what it says are foreigners, civilians and children held hostage. Hakan Fidan, the foreign minister, speaking to Ismail Haniyeh, who I think is based in Qatar. Do you have any hope that negotiation would work in any way?
Of course, negotiation should be the first port of call in this shocking situation created by Hamas. But people should listen to my voice very, very clearly now. Hostages taken by Jew haters are priority number one. This country will not leave its people behind. History has shown us that when hostages are taken from the Jewish people, we will do everything in our power, and I mean everything in our power, to get them back. Witness, of course, the famous Entebbe rescue in the early 1970s, and even the poor parents of dead soldiers who are asking for their sons' bodies back. These are not forgotten. These are high up in the daily headlines here in Israel. We will not forget the hostages here in Israel. People of Israel will put their arms around these poor families, and we will do everything to bring those hostages back.
And how do you see this ending, David? We know there is likely to be this huge ground incursion, but long term, where do you see peace, or when do you see peace happening?
I see peace happening when Hamas are obliterated. Then peace talks can begin.
Do you think that's possible, to obliterate Hamas, to crush that ideology?
I don't think you're listening to me. Israel has suffered the most heinous crime. The people of Israel demand, all right-thinking people demand, that this genocidal bunch of murderers are obliterated from the face of the earth. And believe you me, it will happen. Now, Israel will always put their one hand out to peace. That is in our nature. We wish to live in peace in this region. We, of course, that one of the reasons why this entire terrible thing has happened is because we were getting closer peace, particularly with Saudi Arabia. We knew that the genocidal murderers in Hamas and in Iran, their principal funders, didn't want that to happen, which is why they launched this attack. But we will always try our hardest for peace. But in the words of King David, there is a time for peace and a time for war. And right now, it's time to obliterate Hamas, obliterate
David,
this evil.
I hear you, and I'm listening to you very clearly. All I'm questioning you on is when you say obliterate Hamas, I'm just asking how realistic that could be in terms of absolutely crushing them, because they could be replaced by somebody or something else.
Let me ask you a question in return then. What did Britain do in response to ISIS? What did the United States do in response to ISIS? What did the European Union do in response to ISIS and Daesh? They obliterated them. They no longer exist. The same thing will happen with our own homegrown version of Hamas. They will be obliterated. Of course, peace is always forefront in our mind. It's the very essence of our identity. We wish to live in peace with all of our neighbours in this region. I myself have taken 70 members of parliament down into Gaza to see the reality of life in Gaza for that peace. But what I've never seen in all the years when I've been watching Gaza.
Yeah, David, I'm sorry to interrupt you. We're just seeing pictures of more rocket fire, and we've also seen explosions, we believe, in Gaza, the southern area of the Strip, across the border from Sderot. Let me return to one of the first questions we asked you, with seemingly the aerial warfare still going on. Is there any chance, with Biden coming in tomorrow, of diplomacy winning the day?
I still don't feel that you understand what Hamas is. Hamas is a genocidal death cult. It's not interested in diplomacy. The time for diplomacy with Hamas is long gone. The people that go into a music festival in the desert and mow down 260 innocent dancers dancing until the dawn, those are not people with which you carry out diplomacy. Hamas need to be defeated. And mark my words, they will be defeated.
Right,
There
David,
is, of course,
thank you.
always a role in diplomacy.
Yeah, thank you for your response.